The rain lashed against the grimy alley wall, each drop a tiny, cold needle against Alexander Sterling's exposed skin. He lay crumpled amidst overflowing dumpsters, the stench of forgotten refuse mingling with the acrid tang of cheap liquor. Alex, once the undisputed king of Sterling Industries, a man whose name echoed in boardrooms and whose face graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune, was now just a sodden heap of designer clothes and despair. Just 3 months ago, his world had been a symphony of power, prestige, and the unwavering love of his mother, Eleanor Sterling. She was his anchor, his confidant, the gentle hand that had guided him through the cutthroat world of corporate finance. Even as he built his empire, her sudden brutal illness and swift passing had ripped a gaping hole in his universe, leaving him adrift in a sea of grief. He had tried to numb the pain, first, with work, burying himself in deals, acquisitions, and endless meetings, but the silence of his sprawling penthouse, once filled with his mother's faint laughter or the rustle of her turning pages, became unbearable. Then came the alcohol, a deceptive balm that promised oblivion but delivered only a deeper, darker abyss. His so-called friends, the sycophants who had flocked to his side for lavish parties and lucrative connections, had vanished like mist in the morning sun. His distant relatives, particularly his uncle, Richard Sterling, a man whose ambition was as boundless as his lack of scruples, had offered condolences that felt more like veiled inquiries into his mother's estate. Richard, a minor shareholder and a constant thorn in Alex's side, had always coveted the Sterling legacy. Now, with Alex spiraling, Richard saw his chance. Alex remembered fragments of the last few days, the blur of expensive whiskey, the fever that had begun as a dull ache behind his eyes and now raged through his body, turning his thoughts into a muddled mess. He'd stumbled out of his penthouse, driven by an instinct to escape the suffocating memories, and found himself here, in this forgotten corner of the city, utterly alone. His phone, a sleek, expensive device, lay shattered beside him, a casualty of his drunken rage. No one had called, no one had come looking. The CEO, who once commanded an army of employees, was abandoned, left to rot. A shiver, not entirely from the cold, racked his body, his head pounded, and his throat felt like sandpaper. He tried to push himself up, but his limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. The world spun, and a wave of nausea washed over him. He sank back against the wall, his eyes fluttering closed. He was dying, he thought vaguely, and the thought brought a strange, detached peace. No one cared. Why should he? Just as the darkness threatened to consume him entirely, a faint light cut through the gloom. It wasn't the harsh glare of a street lamp, but a softer, warmer glow. Then, a shadow fell over him, and a voice, surprisingly gentle amidst the urban cacophony, pierced through his delirium. "Oh my God," the voice murmured, laced with genuine concern. "Are you all right?" Alex managed to crack open his eyes. A figure stood over him, silhouetted against the faint glow of a distant storefront. He couldn't make out many details. Just a slender form, a mop of dark hair, and an aura of something he hadn't felt in months: kindness. He tried to speak, but only a hoarse cough escaped his lips. The figure knelt, and Alex saw a young woman, her face smudged with dirt but her eyes wide with alarm. She wore a worn, patched jacket, and her hands, though calloused, were surprisingly gentle as she reached out to touch his forehead. Her touch was cool, a blessed relief against his burning skin. "You're burning up," she said, her voice a soft melody against the harsh rain. "You can't stay here." Alex, the mighty CEO, was helpless. He could only stare at her, a stranger in a forgotten alley, the only person who seemed to notice his existence. Ilara Vance shivered, pulling her threadbare jacket tighter around her. The late-night shift at the diner had been brutal, leaving her exhausted and her meager tips barely enough to cover the week's groceries. Her small apartment, a cramped space above a perpetually noisy laundromat, felt like a palace compared to the streets, but even it offered little warmth against the biting chill of the city. As she cut through the dimly lit alley, a shortcut she usually avoided, but was too tired to bypass tonight, a dark shape caught her eye. At first, she thought it was just another homeless person, a sad, common sight in this part of the city, but something about the way he was slumped, the expensive, albeit mud-splattered, fabric of his suit, and the utter stillness of his form made her pause. He didn't look like the usual alley dwellers. He looked lost and dangerously still. Her heart gave a lurch when she got closer. He was clearly ill, his face flushed, sweat beading on his brow despite the rain. The empty liquor bottle beside him told part of the story, but the fever was undeniable. He was burning up. A wave of empathy, a trait she often wished she could turn off in her own difficult life, washed over her. She knew what it felt like to be alone, to feel invisible. "Oh my God," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "Are you all right?" He stirred, his eyes flickering open, revealing a startling shade of stormy gray, clouded with pain and disorientation. He tried to speak, but only a raspy cough escaped. He looked utterly defeated, a stark contrast to the expensive clothes he wore. "You're burning up," she repeated, her voice soft but firm. Her hand instinctively went to his forehead, and the heat radiating from him confirmed her fear. "You can't stay here. You'll die of exposure." A flicker of something surprised confusion crossed his feverish face. He was clearly a man unaccustomed to such direct, unvarnished concern. Alara looked around. The alley was deserted. No one else was coming. No one else cared. Her own life was a constant struggle, a tightrope walk between rent, food, and her younger sister Lily's school supplies. Taking in a stranger, especially one who reeked of alcohol and was clearly in a bad way, was a risk she couldn't afford. But leaving him here felt even worse. Her mother, gone too soon, had always taught her that true wealth wasn't in possessions, but in kindness. "Can you stand?" she asked, her voice strained as she tried to gauge his weight. He was a big man, broad-shouldered even in his slumped state. He tried, pushing against the wall, but his legs buckled, and he almost collapsed again. Alara quickly steadied him, her small frame surprisingly strong as she took some of his weight. Okay, she murmured, her mind racing. The hospital was too expensive, and she didn't have insurance for him. The police would just take him to a detox center, and he needed more than that. He needed care. She made a decision, a reckless, impulsive one born of pure compassion. "Listen, I can't leave you here. My place isn't much, but it's warm and dry. I can get you some water, maybe some fever reducers." His eyes, though still hazy, seemed to focus on her for a moment, a flicker of something akin to understanding. He didn't resist as she carefully helped him to his feet, one arm slung over her shoulder, his heavy weight almost dragging her down. It was a slow, arduous journey out of the alley and onto the main street, where she hailed a worn-out taxi, surprising the driver with her feverish, well-dressed passenger. "He's sick," she explained simply to the curious driver, her voice firm, daring him to question her. He grumbled but didn't argue. As they finally reached her building, Alara paid the driver with almost all her remaining cash, a pang of worry hitting her. But then she looked at the man slumped beside her, his breathing shallow and ragged, and the worry receded, replaced by a fierce determination. She would get him through this. She had to. The first thing Alexander Sterling registered was the persistent, rhythmic hum of a washing machine, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence of his own mansion. Then came the scent of something warm and earthy, like herbal tea, and the faint, sweet smell of something baking. He slowly opened his eyes, blinking against the soft, unfamiliar light filtering through a window. He was in a small, simply furnished room. A worn but clean quilt covered him, and the mattress beneath him was firm, not the plush, expensive one he was used to. His head still throbbed, but the searing fever had receded, leaving him weak and disoriented. He tried to sit up, a groan escaping his lips as his muscles protested. "Easy, you're awake." The voice was soft, familiar. He turned his head and saw her, the girl from the alley. She sat on a wooden chair by a small table, a book open in her lap, a half-empty mug beside her. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze was steady and kind. Where am I?" His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. He took the water, his hand trembling slightly as he brought it to his lips. The cool liquid was a balm to his parched throat. He drank deeply, then looked at her, confusion warring with a dawning realization. He remembered flashes: the rain, the cold, the despair, and then her. "What?" he managed to croak. "Why did you—" Alara shrugged, a small, almost self-conscious gesture. You looked like you needed help. No one else was around. She paused, her eyes scanning his face. You're a long way from home, aren't you? Your clothes. She gestured vaguely at the expensive, albeit now rumpled, suit jacket draped over a chair. Alex felt a flush of shame. Alexander Sterling, reduced to a charity case in a stranger's humble abode. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, she interrupted gently. Just rest. You've been out for a day and a half. I gave you some fever reducers and tried to get some broth into you when you were half conscious. A day and a half he had been gone that long and no one had noticed. The thought was a bitter pill. He, the man who had dozens of assistants, security, and a network of contacts, had simply vanished, and the world had kept turning without him. My name is Alara, she said, as if sensing his internal turmoil. Alara Vance. Alex, he replied, his voice still rough. Alexander Sterling. A flicker of recognition, then surprise, crossed her face. Her eyes widened slightly. Sterling. As in Sterling Industries, he nodded, a grimace on his face. The one and only. Or rather, the one who was. Alara didn't press him. She simply nodded, her expression unreadable. Well, Mr. Sterling, you're safe here. I'll make you some more tea. As she turned to leave, Alex watched her, a strange mix of emotions swirling within him. Humiliation, yes, but also a profound sense of gratitude. This young woman, who clearly had little herself, had extended a hand when his own world had turned its back. Her quiet strength, her unassuming kindness, was a stark contrast to the superficiality he had always known. In her humble apartment, amidst the scent of tea and the hum of the washing machine, a tiny, fragile seed of hope began to sprout in the desolate landscape of his heart. Over the next few days, Alex's physical recovery was slow but steady, thanks to Alara's diligent care. She brewed herbal teas, made simple, nourishing broths, and insisted he rest. He watched her move about her small apartment, cooking, cleaning, studying for what he learned were night classes, and even tutoring her younger sister. Lily, a bright-eyed girl who was initially wary of the imposing stranger, but soon warmed to his quiet presence. He learned about Alara's life. Her parents had passed away years ago, leaving her to raise Lily. She worked 2 jobs, studied at night, and still managed to maintain a cheerful, optimistic spirit. Her resilience was a stark contrast to his own self-pitying despair. As his mind cleared from the fog of fever and alcohol, the memories returned, sharp and painful. The funeral, a blur of hypocritical faces, the reading of his mother's will, and then the chilling realization of the betrayal. One evening, as Alara sat sketching at her small table, Alex finally spoke, his voice low and strained. My mother. She left everything to me. Sterling Industries, her personal fortune, everything. Alara looked up, her pencil pausing. That's good, isn't it? It should be, Alex said, a bitter laugh escaping him. But my uncle, Richard, he's been trying to contest the will. He claims I'm unstable, unfit to manage the company. He's been spreading rumors, trying to paint me as a reckless drunk, spiraling out of control after my mother's death. Alara's brow furrowed. But you were drunk? And sick. Exactly, Alex said, his gaze hardening. And no one cared. No one from my family, no one from my board, no one from my so-called friends. They all just let me disappear. It was almost convenient for Richard, wasn't it? A chilling thought began to form in his mind, connecting the dots of his recent past, his mother's sudden illness, which doctors had struggled to diagnose, Richard's overly solicitous behavior in the weeks leading up to her death, always bringing her strange health tonics. The way his personal assistant, a man he'd trusted for years, had suddenly become evasive and unhelpful after his mother passed. I think, Alex said, his voice dropping to a whisper, Richard might have had something to do with my mother's illness. Or at least, he exploited it. And he definitely orchestrated my public breakdown. Alara's eyes widened, her sketch forgotten. That's a serious accusation. Alex, I know, he said, running a hand through his hair. But it feels right. He always wanted control. And with me out of the way, he could easily seize everything. He's probably already making moves at the company, trying to consolidate power, convince the board I'm incapable. He looked at Alara, his gaze desperate. I have nothing. No phone, no money, no contacts. They probably think I'm dead. Or committed. My entire life. My mother's legacy is slipping away. Ilara listened, her expression thoughtful. She saw the raw pain in his eyes, the dawning horror of betrayal. She had seen enough injustice in her own life to recognize the scent of it. "What do you need to do?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. Alex took a deep breath, a spark of his old determination flickering in his eyes. "I need to get back. I need to prove I'm sane, that I'm capable. And I need to find out what really happened to my mother. If Richard was involved," his voice trailed off, a cold fury replacing the despair. "He will pay." Ilara simply nodded. "Then we'll figure it out. Together." Her simple words, "together," resonated deeply within Alex. He was no longer alone. In this humble apartment, with this kind, courageous girl, he had found an unexpected ally, a beacon of light in his darkest hour. His fall had brought him here, but perhaps it was also the beginning of his rise. With his mind clear and a new purpose burning within him, Alex began to strategize. He couldn't just walk back into Sterling Industries. Richard would have undoubtedly solidified his position and painted Alex as a delusional threat. He needed proof, leverage. He started by recounting every detail of the past few months to Ilara, his mother's declining health, the vague diagnoses, Richard's frequent visits bearing wellness drinks, the sudden shift in his personal assistant, Mark's, demeanor. Ilara, with her sharp mind and practical approach, listened intently, asking probing questions Alex hadn't considered. "Did your mother have any regular doctors, aside from specialists?" Ilara asked one afternoon, as Alex paced her tiny living room. "Dr. Eris. She was her primary care physician for years," Alex replied, stopping short. But Richard insisted on bringing in a new team of alternative healers when her condition worsened. He said Dr. Eris wasn't making progress. "And did Dr. Eris ever express concern about these alternative treatments?" Alex frowned, a memory surfacing. "She did. She seemed uneasy. She tried to warn me about some of the ingredients in Richard's tonics, but I was so desperate, so focused on finding a cure. I dismissed her concerns. We need to find Dr. Aris." Ilara stated she might have records, or at least a professional opinion that contradicts Richard's narrative. Their first hurdle was communication. Alex had no phone, no money, and no way to access his accounts. Ilara, resourceful as ever, offered her old, cracked smartphone. "It's slow, but it works for calls and basic internet," she said. Alex used it to try and reach Dr. Eris. Her office number was disconnected. He tried her home number, which he vaguely remembered, but it went straight to voicemail. A dead end. "Richard must have gotten to her," Alex muttered, his jaw tight. "He wouldn't leave loose ends." "Don't give up," Ilara urged. "There must be another way." "Did your mother have a lawyer? Someone who handled her personal affairs?" "Mr. Davies," Alex replied, "an old family friend. He handled her will." "He's our next best bet," Ilara said. "He'd be harder for Richard to silence." The next day, Ilara, using her limited funds, took a bus to the uptown district where Mr. Davies's law firm was located. Alex, still too recognizable and lacking proper attire, had to stay behind. The wait was agonizing. Hours later, Ilara returned, her face grim. "Mr. Davies. He passed away suddenly last month. A heart attack." Alex felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. Too many coincidences. Dr. Eris, unreachable. Mr. Davies dead. Richard was thorough. "It's a setup," Alex said, his voice hollow. "He systematically removed anyone who could expose him." "Maybe," Ilara conceded. "But there's something else. I spoke to his secretary. She said Mr. Davies was very particular about his files. He kept a separate, locked safe for his most sensitive cases. And he always told her, 'If anything happens to me, make sure Alexander Sterling gets the key. Only him.'" A spark ignited in Alex's eyes. "A key to what?" "She didn't know," Ilara said. "But she said he had a small and private safe deposit box at the old First National Bank downtown. He never told her what was in it, but he always mentioned it when he talked about the key. This was it. A lifeline. His mother, always one step ahead, must have anticipated Richard's treachery. She had left a breadcrumb trail. "We need that key," Alex declared, a steely resolve in his voice. "And whatever is in that safe deposit box." The conspiracy was no longer a theory. It was a tangible, insidious web woven by his own uncle. And Alex, with Alara by his side, was ready to unravel it. The revelation of the safe deposit box ignited a fragile hope in Alex, but also a stark realization of his current predicament. He was a CEO without a suit, a billionaire without a dime. He couldn't simply walk into a bank and demand a key. He needed to be discreet, and he needed money. "I have some savings," Alara offered, seeing the despair in his eyes. "Not much, but enough for bus fare, maybe some food." Alex shook his head. "No, Alara, you need that for Lily, for your rent. I can't take your hard-earned money." "It's an investment," she countered, her gaze firm. "Injustice, and besides, you'll pay me back, won't you, Mr. Sterling?" A faint, teasing smile touched her lips, a rare moment of lightness that eased the tension. He managed a weak smile in return. "More than you could imagine." Their plan was simple, yet fraught with risk. Alara would go to the bank, posing as a distant relative inquiring about Mr. Davies's estate. She would try to subtly gather information about the safe deposit box. And, more importantly, the key. Alex, meanwhile, would try to contact his mother's former head of security, a man named Marcus Thorne, who had been fiercely loyal to Eleanor. He was a long shot, but their only other option. While Alara was at the bank, Alex used her phone to search for Marcus. He found an old contact number and, with a pounding heart, dialed. It rang several times before a gruff voice answered. "Thorne Investigations," the voice said. "Marcus, it's Alex Sterling, Eleanor's son." Silence on the other end. Then, a skeptical laugh. "Alex Sterling. Heard you were dead or locked up. Richard Sterling's been making a lot of noise about it." "It's a lie, Marcus," Alex pleaded, his voice urgent. "Richard is behind all of this. My mother. I think he had something to do with her illness, and he's trying to steal everything." There was another pause, a longer one this time. "Eleanor was a good woman," Marcus finally said, his voice losing some of its skepticism. "She always trusted me." "What do you need?" Alex quickly explained his situation. The alley, Illyra's kindness, the missing key, the dead lawyer. He poured out his story, the raw truth of his vulnerability. "All right, kid," Marcus said, a hint of his old loyalty returning. "Meet me tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. at the old diner on Elm Street. Come alone, and don't tell anyone you're meeting me." A wave of relief washed over Alex. A crack in Richard's fortress. He had an ally. When Alara returned, she had good news. The bank confirmed Mr. Davies had a safe deposit box, but they said only he, or a designated heir with the key, could access it. They wouldn't give me any information about the key itself, but the clerk mentioned that Mr. Davies was known for keeping unconventional things in his office. "Unconventional?" Alex repeated, a thought sparking. "My mother gave him a small, antique silver locket a few months before she died. She said it was a family heirloom, but it looked like just a trinket. She told me it had a secret and that Mr. Davies would know what to do with it if anything happened to her." "Alex!" Alara's eyes lit up. Could that be the key? It was a long shot, but it was their only lead. The locket was likely still in Mr. Davies's office, now part of his estate. Getting it would be another challenge. The next morning, Alex, dressed in some of Alara's brother's old, ill-fitting clothes, met Marcus. The former head of security was a gruff, imposing man, but his eyes held a flicker of genuine concern. Alex reiterated his suspicions about Richard, and Marcus, a seasoned investigator, listened with a professional ear. "I've been hearing whispers about Richard, too," Marcus admitted. "He's been making aggressive moves at Sterling Industries, pushing through rapid changes, and some of the old guard are uneasy." He paused, then looked at Alex. "You're a mess, kid, but you've got guts. And that girl, Alara, you said she's got a good heart." Alex felt a warmth spread through him at the mention of Alara. "She saved my life, Marcus. Literally." Marcus nodded. "All right. First, we need to get you cleaned up and into some proper clothes. You can't fight a corporate war looking like a street urchin. Then, we go after that locket. I have some contacts who can get us into Mr. Davies' office discreetly. After that, we hit Richard where it hurts. The alliance was no longer fragile. It was forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by unexpected kindness. Alex, stripped of his power and privilege, was learning the true meaning of reliance, humility, and the invaluable strength of those who cared, not for his name, but for him. With Marcus Thorne now on their side, the tide began to turn. Marcus, a man of action and immense resources, quickly got Alex a new phone, some cash, and a tailored suit that made him look every inch the CEO he was, albeit a leaner, more determined version. He also arranged for a secure, discreet apartment for Alex, away from Alara's humble abode, for strategic reasons. "You're a target, Alex," Marcus explained. "Richard will be looking for you. We need to keep Alara and Lily safe, and your base of operations hidden." Alex understood. He hated leaving Alara, but he knew it was for their protection. He promised to visit as often as he could, and Alara, though sad, understood the necessity. Their bond had deepened into something profound, a silent understanding that transcended words. Their first target, Mr. Davies's office. Marcus, with his network of contacts, managed to get them access late one night. The office was exactly as Alara had described, meticulous, orderly, but with a hint of the unconventional. Alex remembered his mother's locket, a small, intricate silver piece, and began to search. It wasn't in the obvious places. They painstakingly went through every drawer, every file cabinet. Finally, tucked away in a hidden compartment behind a loose panel in Mr. Davies's desk, they found it, the antique silver locket. It was heavy, intricately carved with swirling patterns. "This is it," Alex whispered, his fingers tracing the cool metal. "But where's the key?" Marcus examined the locket. "It's not a key, Alex, it's a locket. There must be something inside." With a delicate click, Alex managed to open it. Inside, nestled on a velvet lining, was a tiny, intricately folded piece of paper. He carefully unfolded it. It was a single, typed sentence. "The truth lies where the stars meet the earth. Remember the constellation." Alex frowned. "The stars? What does that mean?" Marcus looked thoughtful. "Your mother was a woman of riddles. Sometimes. Did she have any particular interest? Astronomy? Perhaps." "She loved the observatory," Alex mused. "The old Sterling Observatory, built by my great-grandfather. She used to take me there as a child, point out constellations." "The Sterling Observatory," Marcus repeated, a glint in his eye. "Where the stars meet the earth. That's our next stop." The next night, under the cover of darkness, Alex and Marcus made their way to the dilapidated Sterling Observatory, long abandoned and forgotten by most, including, presumably, Richard. The air inside was thick with dust and the scent of decay, but the massive telescope, though covered in cobwebs, still pointed towards the heavens. Alex remembered his mother's favorite constellation, one she had always called the guiding light, a small, unassuming cluster of stars that formed a distinct M shape. He moved towards the telescope, his heart pounding. As he adjusted the ancient mechanism, a faint inscription on the base of the telescope caught his eye, almost invisible beneath layers of grime. He wiped it away, revealing a series of numbers and letters, almost like coordinates. He looked at Marcus, a growing excitement building in his chest. "This isn't coordinates for the sky," Alex breathed. "This is a safe combination. And the M, it's for my mother, Eleanor." They searched the observatory, following the subtle clues. Behind a loose brick in the old stone wall, they found it a small, sturdy safe, built into the very foundation of the building. Alex, his hands trembling, input the combination from the telescope base. The heavy door clicked open. Inside, nestled amongst old documents and a faded photograph of his mother, was a thick, bound journal. It was Eleanor Sterling's personal diary, meticulously kept, detailing her final months. As Alex began to read, a cold dread turned into a burning rage. The journal detailed Richard's insidious plan. The health tonics were slow-acting poisons, designed to mimic a degenerative illness. Eleanor had suspected him, had secretly documented his visits, the ingredients he brought, her deteriorating health, and her growing certainty of his treachery. She had also recorded his attempts to manipulate her will, to isolate Alex, and her fears for her son's future. The last entries were a desperate plea for Alex to find the truth, a final act of love and protection. This was it. The missing piece. Eleanor's journal was powerful, but a direct recording of Richard's voice would be irrefutable. Then, the corporate lawyer stepped forward. Furthermore, my firm has uncovered a series of highly questionable financial transactions and corporate maneuvers initiated by Mr. Richard Sterling in the past 3 months, all designed to systematically devalue Sterling Industries' core assets and transfer ownership to shell corporations controlled by Mr. Richard Sterling. This constitutes clear corporate fraud and embezzlement. "Can you get him?" Alex asked, his heart pounding. "Can you get the recordings?" Just as Richard began to speak, the doors swung open. All heads turned as Alex Sterling walked in, impeccably dressed, his posture erect, his gaze unwavering. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Richard's confident smile faltered, replaced by a look of pure shock and then a flicker of fear. "It'll cost," Marcus warned. "Mark's desperate, but it's worth every penny." The board members, many of whom had been swayed by Richard's charm or intimidated by his power, now looked at him with dawning horror. The combination of potential murder and blatant financial malfeasance was undeniable. Marcus arranged a clandestine meeting with Mark. It was a tense encounter. Mark, pale and haggard, was clearly terrified of Richard, but his desperation for money outweighed his fear. He handed over a small, encrypted USB drive. "A direct confrontation," Alex replied, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "I want to see his face when he realizes his game is up. I want him to know I know. And then we expose him, publicly, unequivocally." "It's all there," Mark whispered, his eyes darting nervously. "Every conversation. He was so arrogant. He didn't care if I recorded him. He thought he was untouchable." "Oh, this is a witch hunt," Richard roared, his composure finally shattering. "You're all against me. I'll sue every single one of you." Alex took the drive, his fingers trembling. This was the key to unlocking the truth, to ensuring Richard faced the full weight of justice. "Alexander," Richard exclaimed, forcing a jovial tone. "What a surprise we thought you were indisposed." The next day in court, the atmosphere was electric. Richard's lawyer was in the middle of a scathing attack on Alex's character. When Marcus, with a nod from Alex, approached the judge, "You'll be too busy defending yourself." "Mr. Sterling," Alex stated, his voice cold and resolute, "because as of this moment, I'm initiating legal proceedings against you for the murder of my mother, Eleanor Sterling, for corporate fraud, and for defamation of character. And I will ensure that every single detail of your treachery is made public." "Your Honor," Marcus announced, "the defense has presented a fabricated medical report to discredit my client. We, however, have undeniable evidence that will expose the true nature of Mr. Richard Sterling's actions." Armed with his mother's journal, Alex felt a chilling clarity. The grief was still a raw wound, but now it was laced with a cold, righteous fury. Richard Sterling had not just stolen his inheritance. He had murdered his mother. Richard scoffed. "More baseless accusations, I presume." The news exploded. The story of the drunk and feverish CEO who was found in an alley, only to rise and expose a vast conspiracy involving his own uncle, became a media sensation. The tabloids feasted on the drama, but more reputable news outlets focused on the shocking allegations of corporate fraud and, more chillingly, matricide. "Not this time, Uncle," Alex said, his voice ringing with authority. "This time, you'll hear it from your own mouth." Indisposed, Alex's voice was calm, cutting through the tension. "I was merely taking a much-needed sabbatical, Uncle, a time for reflection, and during that reflection, I uncovered some rather disturbing truths." Marcus connected a small speaker to a laptop, and the courtroom was filled with the chilling, familiar voice of Richard Sterling. Ilara, watching the news reports from her small apartment, felt a surge of pride and relief. Alex, the man she had found broken and abandoned, was now a titan once more, fighting for justice. She deliberately stayed out of the public eye, her role a quiet, supportive one. She knew Alex would protect her and Lily from the media frenzy. And make sure he drinks every drop of that tonic. Mark, she needs to be weakened before the will reading, and spread those rumors about Alex's breakdown. The more unstable he looks, the easier it will be to declare him unfit. Marcus looked at him, a flicker of concern. "That's risky, Alex," He's a desperate man. He could be dangerous. The recording continued, detailing Richard's instructions to Mark, his cynical laughter as he discussed his mother's deteriorating health, and his explicit plans to seize control of Sterling Industries. The courtroom was silent, save for Richard's own voice, damning him with every word. Richard Sterling, stripped of his power and influence, found himself isolated. His friends vanished. His allies abandoned him, and the board, now firmly behind Alex, voted unanimously to remove him from all positions within Sterling Industries. The legal battle was fierce, but with Eleanor's journal as irrefutable evidence and the toxicologist's findings, Richard's defense crumbled. Richard's face, already pale, turned an ashen gray. He looked like a cornered animal, his eyes wide with disbelief and terror. His lawyer, a seasoned professional, looked utterly defeated, knowing the game was truly over. He walked to the center of the room, holding up his mother's journal. "This, gentleman, is my mother's personal diary. In it, she meticulously documented her final months. And in it, she details how she was systematically poisoned by someone she trusted implicitly. The judge, a stern, unyielding woman, listened intently, her expression hardening with each passing second. When the recording finally ended, she slammed her gavel down. The public was captivated. The narrative of the powerful CEO brought low by grief and betrayal, only to be saved by the kindness of a stranger and rise to exact justice, resonated deeply. It was a story of resilience, of hidden strength, and of the enduring power of good over evil. "Mr. Richard Sterling," she stated, her voice cold and clear, "based on the irrefutable evidence presented, I am ordering your immediate arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, corporate fraud, and obstruction of justice. Bail is denied." Marcus, reading over his shoulder, let out a low whistle. "This is it, Alex. This is everything. Proof. Motive. This will bring him down." Two uniformed officers, who had been waiting discreetly at the back of the courtroom, moved forward and placed Richard Sterling under arrest. He struggled, shouting protests and threats, but it was useless. His reign of terror was over. Alex, however, found no joy in Richard's downfall. The victory was hollow, overshadowed by the painful truth of his mother's murder. But he knew this was what she would have wanted: justice. And he had Ilara to thank for everything. She had been the quiet force that had pulled him back from the brink, the unwavering light in his darkest hour. Alex watched, a profound sense of relief washing over him. It wasn't triumph, not exactly. The pain of his mother's loss would never truly fade, but justice, finally, was being served. And he knew, deep in his heart, that his mother was finally at peace. Richard's face drained of color, poisoned. "This is preposterous, Alexander. Your grief has clearly unhinged you." The arrest of Richard Sterling sent shockwaves through the city and the corporate world. The media, now armed with the irrefutable recordings, painted a vivid picture of his treachery. The story of the drunk and feverish CEO who had been abandoned and then rose to expose a murderous conspiracy became a modern-day legend, a testament to resilience and the unexpected power of kindness. Despite the overwhelming evidence and the public turning against Richard, the legal battle was a grueling, emotionally draining ordeal. Richard, a master manipulator, continued to fight dirty, hiring a ruthless legal team that tried every trick in the book to discredit Alex and the journal. They painted Eleanor as delusional in her final days, Alex as a vengeful son, and Ilara as a gold digger who had exploited a vulnerable man. The subsequent trial was swift and decisive. With Eleanor's journal, the toxicologist's findings, and Mark's damning recordings, Richard Sterling had no defense. He was found guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, corporate fraud, and embezzlement. The judge handed down a severe sentence, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. "He underestimated me once," Alex said, a cold smile touching his lips. "He won't do it again. But first, I need to make sure I have the support of the board, or at least enough of them to swing the vote." For Alex, the verdict brought a bittersweet sense of closure. The pain of losing his mother remained, a constant ache in his heart, but the burden of injustice had been lifted. He had fulfilled his promise to her, ensuring her legacy was protected and her murderer brought to justice. The media, while initially sympathetic, began to pick at the edges of the story, fueled by Richard's PR machine. Doubts were subtly sown. Was Alex truly recovered? Or was this a manic episode? Was the journal authentic? Or a clever forgery? Alara, though protected by Alex and Marcus, felt the sting of the accusations. Seeing her kindness twisted into malice, the aftermath saw a rapid cleanup at Sterling Industries. The board, now fully united behind Alex, worked tirelessly to undo Richard's destructive changes. Alex, no longer consumed by grief or revenge, approached his leadership with a newfound perspective. He implemented ethical reforms, prioritized employee well-being, and steered the company towards sustainable growth rather than ruthless expansion. He used his immense wealth to fund philanthropic initiatives, particularly in supporting struggling families and providing educational opportunities, remembering his own time on the streets and Alara's unwavering kindness. Has it, Alex countered, his voice rising, imbued with authority, or has the truth finally set me free? My mother suspected you, Richard. She wrote about your health tonics, the ingredients you brought, her rapidly declining health. She wrote about your greed, your ambition, and your desperate attempts to seize control of Sterling Industries. He also ensured Mark, the former assistant, received a substantial sum for his cooperation, enough to pay off his debts and start a new life. Far away from his gambling addiction, Alex believed in second chances, especially for those who, like himself, had been caught in a web of deceit. One particularly brutal day in court, Richard's lawyer presented a fabricated medical report, allegedly from a renowned psychiatrist, claiming Alex had a history of severe mental instability and delusions. Though Marcus immediately moved to have it dismissed as fraudulent, the seed of doubt was planted in the minds of some, including a few wavering board members. One quiet evening, Alex sat with Alara in her small apartment. Lily was asleep in the next room. The city hummed outside, but inside, there was a profound sense of peace. "We need to go to the authorities," Marcus stated, his voice grim as he finished reading the damning entries. "This is beyond corporate espionage. This is murder." "It's over," Alex said, his voice soft. "Richard's in prison. The company is stable again. My mother's name is cleared." That evening, Alex returned to his new, luxurious apartment, the weight of the day crushing him. He slumped onto the sofa, staring blankly at the cityscape outside. He had fought so hard, endured so much, but the constant barrage of lies and manipulation was taking its toll. The image of his mother, vibrant and full of life, flashed before his eyes, followed by the haunting memory of her frail, poisoned form. Alara smiled, a genuine, radiant smile. "You did it, Alex. You fought for her, and you won." He opened the journal to a marked page. "Here, on page 217, she details a conversation where you explicitly threatened to remove anyone who stood in your way. And here, on page 225, she describes a specific conversation where you tried to coerce her into changing her will, threatening to expose my reckless behavior." "We did it," he corrected, reaching for her hand. "I wouldn't have survived, wouldn't have found the truth, without you, Alara. You saved my life, literally pulled me out of that alley, and then you gave me the strength to fight. It's never going to end, is it?" he murmured, his voice hollow. "He'll just keep fighting, keep lying. My mother won't get true justice, and I'll be forever tainted by his accusations." He looked at her, his eyes filled with a depth of emotion he hadn't known he was capable of. "You showed me what true wealth is. Alara, it's not money, or power, or prestige. It's kindness. It's compassion. It's having someone who cares, even when no one else does." Over the next few days, Alex, guided by Marcus, began to subtly reconnect with key figures on the Sterling Industries board. He didn't reveal the full extent of Richard's treachery, but he hinted at irregularities in Richard's recent management decisions, unethical practices, and the rapid, destabilizing changes Richard was pushing through. He presented himself as a concerned son, recovered from his grief, and ready to take back the reins. Alara's cheeks flushed slightly, but her gaze met his, steady and open. "You just needed someone to see you, Alex. Not the CEO, not the billionaire. Just you." He felt a familiar despair creeping back in, a suffocating darkness that threatened to consume him. He had faced down corporate rivals, hostile takeovers, and economic downturns, but this personal, insidious battle was far more brutal. He felt a desperate urge to reach for a bottle, to numb the pain, to escape the crushing weight of it all. He tightened his grip on her hand. And you saw me. You saw the broken man and chose to help. That changed everything. Richard sprang to his feet, his face contorted with rage. This is a fabrication, a desperate attempt by a madman to reclaim what he lost. He was found drunk in an alley. Gentlemen, he's clearly unstable. The world had seen the dramatic rise and fall of Alexander Sterling, the CEO. But in the quiet intimacy of Alara's apartment, a different story had unfolded, the transformation of a man from despair to purpose. Guided by the purest form of human connection, justice had been served, but something far more profound had been found. Just then, the door opened, and Ilara walked in. She had insisted on visiting him, sensing his distress. She carried a small bag, from which she produced a thermos of her homemade herbal tea and a plate of Lily's favorite cookies. With Richard Sterling behind bars and Sterling Industries stabilized, Alex dedicated himself to rebuilding, not just the company, but his own life. He had learned invaluable lessons from his ordeal, lessons that no business school or boardroom could teach: humility, resilience, and the profound importance of genuine human connection became the new cornerstones of his existence. My apartment, Ilara replied, rising and approaching the bed. She held out a glass of water. You were pretty out of it, drunk and burning up. I found you in the alley. He transformed Sterling Industries from a ruthless corporate giant into a model of ethical business. He initiated programs for employee welfare, invested heavily in sustainable practices, and established a foundation in his mother's name, dedicated to supporting single-parent families and providing scholarships for underprivileged students, a direct tribute to Ilara and Lily. He poisoned her, Alex whispered, his voice raw with grief and fury. My own uncle. He murdered my mother. His public image shifted from the troubled CEO to a philanthropic visionary. He used his platform to speak about mental health, the dangers of corporate greed, and the power of compassion. He became a beacon of hope, a testament to the idea that even the most powerful could fall and rise again, stronger and wiser. She saw the defeated slump of his shoulders, the haunted look in his eyes. She didn't say anything, just sat beside him, gently placing a hand on his arm. Her touch was warm, steadying, but his greatest transformation was personal. The vast, empty penthouse felt less like a prison and more like a home. Now that Ilara and Lily were often there, Ilara continued her studies, pursuing a degree in social work, inspired by her own experiences. Alex provided her with a scholarship, but she insisted on earning her degree through her own hard work, a trait he deeply admired. Yes, I was found drunk in an alley, Alex admitted, his gaze sweeping over the board members, some of whom shifted uncomfortably. Because I was grieving, yes. But also because, as my mother's journal reveals, you systematically isolated me, spread rumors, and created the perfect environment for my public breakdown. You wanted me out of the way, didn't you, Richard? You wanted everyone to believe I was unfit, so you could swoop in and steal my mother's legacy. Lily, once shy, blossomed under Alex's quiet attention. He taught her chess, helped her with her homework, and listened patiently to her stories. He became a steady, loving presence in her life, a big brother figure she adored. It's hard, isn't it? She said softly, her voice a balm. Fighting for what's right, when everyone tries to twist it. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of his penthouse, overlooking the glittering city lights, Ilara leaned her head on his shoulder. It's so different now, she murmured. Everything. His transformation was remarkable. Gone was the haunted, disheveled man. In his place was the sharp, commanding Alex Sterling they knew, but with a new depth, a quiet intensity that commanded respect. He had learned humility, and it made him stronger. It is, Alex agreed, wrapping an arm around her. And it's all thanks to you. You showed me a world beyond boardrooms and balance sheets, a world where kindness matters more than profit, and integrity is more valuable than power. Alex nodded, unable to speak. He had offered to buy her a new, bigger apartment, but she had gently refused, preferring her familiar, cozy space. He respected her independence, her quiet strength. He knew her heart wasn't swayed by his wealth, but by the man he had become. He looked directly at Richard, his eyes blazing. You didn't just try to steal my company, uncle. You murdered my mother. I used to think happiness was about achieving more, acquiring more, Alex confessed, his voice soft. But I was never truly happy until I lost everything and found you. You taught me what it means to be truly rich. But you can't give up, she continued, her voice gaining a quiet strength. Your mother trusted you. She fought for you, even in her last moments. You owe it to her to see this through. Their relationship had deepened organically, built on shared trauma, mutual respect, and a quiet, profound love. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic declarations, just a steady, unwavering presence in each other's lives. He had fallen, indeed, but not in the way anyone expected. He had fallen head over heels for the kind, poor girl who had saved him. Not yet, Alex said, his eyes fixed on the journal. Richard is powerful. He has connections. If we go in without a solid plan, he'll twist it, bury it. He'll make me look like the unstable son, grieving and delusional. He knew his life would never be the same. He was still Alexander Sterling, CEO, but he was also something more, a man who understood the value of a warm home, a simple meal, and the unwavering love of a small, unconventional family. His new beginning was not just about reclaiming his empire, it was about finding his true self and his true home in the most unexpected of places. She looked at him, her eyes shining with unwavering belief. You're not that man in the alley anymore. Alex, you're stronger. You're fighting for justice, not just for yourself, but for her, and for everyone Richard has ever wronged. The quiet affection that had blossomed between Alex and Alara deepened into an undeniable love. It wasn't a whirlwind romance born of passion and fleeting desires. It was a love forged in the crucible of adversity, built on shared vulnerability, profound gratitude, and an unshakable respect. The room fell silent, the weight of Alex's accusation hanging heavy in the air. Richard, cornered, visibly trembled. The confrontation had begun, and the truth, finally, was out. Alex found himself drawn to Alara's simple life, her unwavering optimism despite hardship, and her genuine compassion. He loved watching her study late into the night, her brow furrowed in concentration, or seeing her patiently help Lily with her homework. Her presence in his life was a grounding force, a constant reminder of the values he now held dear. She handed him the thermos. Drink this. It'll help, and remember why you started. He no longer felt the need for extravagant displays of wealth. Instead, he found joy in the small things, sharing a homemade meal with Alara and Lily, walking through the park on a sunny afternoon, or simply sitting in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined. He saw the world through her eyes, appreciating the beauty in everyday moments he had once overlooked. Richard, meanwhile, was growing increasingly confident. He had consolidated power, spread rumors of Alex's permanent incapacitation, and was on the verge of pushing through a major restructuring that would solidify his control. He even called a special board meeting, ostensibly to finalize the new corporate structure and officially declare Alex unfit. Alara, for her part, saw beyond the billionaire facade. She saw the man who had been broken, lost, and then painstakingly rebuilt himself. She admired his intelligence, his fierce loyalty, and the genuine kindness that had emerged from his ordeal. She loved the way he gently teased Lily, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, and the quiet strength he exuded. Alex took the thermos, his fingers brushing hers. Her simple presence, her steadfast belief, was a lifeline. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not just kindness, but immense courage. She, who had lost so much, who fought for every scrap of her own life, never gave up. How could he? One evening, after a particularly challenging day at work, Alex arrived at Ilara's apartment, exhausted. She met him at the door with a warm smile and a plate of his favorite comfort food. As they sat together, the familiar hum of the laundromat below a comforting backdrop, Alex realized he was truly home. Richard Sterling, despite the damning evidence in Eleanor's journal, was not one to surrender easily. He immediately denied everything, accusing Alex of slander, emotional instability, and a desperate attempt to regain control. He leveraged his influence within the company and his carefully cultivated relationships with certain board members to dismiss Alex's claims as the ramblings of a grief-stricken, unstable man. Alara, he began, his voice a little shaky, I know this isn't a grand gesture, and I don't have a diamond bigger than your hand right now, but he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. He took a slow sip of the tea. It was warm, comforting, and tasted faintly of ginger and mint. He felt a tiny spark rekindle within him, a flicker of the fire that had driven him this far. Ilara's eyes widened as he opened it. Inside, nestled on a satin cushion, was not a diamond ring, but a simple, elegant silver locket, almost identical to his mother's, but with a single, small sapphire embedded in its center. The counterattack had begun. And this time, Alex Sterling was not falling. He was rising, fueled by a mother's love and a thirst for justice. "It's a replica of my mother's locket," Alex explained, his gaze earnest. "The one that held the truth. I had this one made for you. The sapphire. It's the color of your eyes, and it represents truth and wisdom." "Thank you, Ilara," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I don't know what I'd do without you." He took her hand, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. "You are my truth, Ilara. You are the one who saw me when no one else did, who brought me home, who helped me find my way back. You are my guiding light, just like my mother's constellation. This is a tragedy. Gentlemen," Richard declared to the board, his voice feigning sorrow, "Alexander is clearly unwell. We must consider his mental state. This journal is a fabrication, a desperate fantasy." He took a deep breath. "Ilara Vance, I love you, more than words can say. Will you? Will you marry me?" She smiled, a gentle, understanding smile. "You wouldn't be alone. That's what matters." Tears welled in Ilara's eyes. She didn't hesitate. "Yes, Alex, 1,000 times. Yes." This was Alex's chance. He slipped the locket around her neck, its cool metal a comforting weight against her skin. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of their journey, of the truth that had brought them together, and of the love that had blossomed in the most unexpected of circumstances. In that moment, surrounded by the opulence of his regained wealth, Alex realized his true treasure wasn't the billions in his bank account or the sprawling empire he commanded. It was the quiet strength of the woman beside him, the unwavering faith she held in him, and the simple, profound truth that he was no longer alone. The darkest hour had passed, and a new resolve, stronger than ever, began to burn within him. The legal battle raged on, but Alex, reinvigorated by Ilara's unwavering support, fought with renewed determination. Marcus, meanwhile, was working tirelessly behind the scenes, counteracting Richard's smear campaigns and digging deeper into his past. Their engagement was a quiet affair, a private celebration shared only with Lily and Marcus. The world might have expected a lavish billionaire wedding, but Alex and Ilara chose a small, intimate ceremony, a testament to their values. They had found their happiness, not in the grandiosity of wealth, but in the profound connection of two souls who had found each other against all odds. Their love was a quiet revolution, proving that kindness, resilience, and genuine connection were the true treasures in life. But Alex was prepared. Marcus had anticipated this. As Richard finished his theatrical denial, the boardroom doors opened again, and in walked Marcus Thorne, flanked by two stern-faced individuals, a renowned forensic toxicologist and a seasoned corporate lawyer known for handling high-stakes cases. The wedding was a small and intimate affair held in a sun-drenched garden, attended only by their closest friends and family. Lily, beaming as the flower girl, Marcus, standing proudly as Alex's best man, and a handful of Ilara's kind neighbors and Alex's most loyal, trusted employees. There were no flashing cameras, no media circus, just the quiet joy of two souls finding their true home in each other. One afternoon, Marcus called Alex with an urgent tone. "I've got a lead. A big one. Remember Mark, your former personal assistant?" Alex and Ilara built a life together that was a beautiful blend of their two worlds. They moved into a spacious yet warm and inviting home that felt more like a sanctuary than a mansion. Ilara continued her social work studies, eventually becoming a passionate advocate for underprivileged youth, using the Sterling Foundation to fund innovative programs. Alex, while still leading Sterling Industries, shifted its focus towards ethical investments and social responsibility, proving that a company could be both profitable and principled. So, what's the plan? Lily thrived, growing into a bright, confident young woman, with Alex as her steadfast mentor and Ilara as her loving guide. She saw in them a living testament to the power of kindness and resilience. Alex's jaw tightened. "The one who conveniently disappeared after my mother's death and was clearly working for Richard. Richard Sterling remained in prison, his name a cautionary tale in the corporate world. His downfall served as a stark reminder that greed and malice, no matter how powerful, would eventually be met with justice. Mr. Sterling's claims are far from baseless. Mr. Richard Sterling, the toxicologist stated, her voice calm and authoritative. Based on the detailed descriptions in Mrs. Eleanor Sterling's journal regarding the health tonics and her symptoms, we have conducted preliminary tests on residual samples found in her personal effects, which Mr. Alexander Sterling provided. The results indicate the presence of a slow-acting accumulative toxin consistent with the symptoms described. Alex often reflected on his journey. He had been a man who had everything, yet felt utterly alone. He had lost his mother, fallen into despair, and been abandoned by those he thought were closest to him. But in his darkest hour, a kind, poor girl had reached out, offering not judgment, but compassion. She had taken him home, not to a grand estate, but to a humble apartment filled with warmth and genuine care. And in that act of selfless kindness, he had not truly fallen, but had been lifted, transformed, and ultimately saved. The very same, Marcus confirmed. Turns out, Richard didn't pay him as generously as he promised. Mark's been struggling, and he's got a gambling problem. He's been trying to sell some sensitive information to various media outlets, but no one believed him because Richard's PR team had already discredited him. He had found not just love, but a deeper understanding of himself, of humanity, and of what truly mattered. His mother's legacy was not just the company or the fortune, but the profound lesson that true wealth lay in the connections we forge, the kindness we extend, and the unwavering belief in justice and compassion. The day of the board meeting arrived. The atmosphere in the opulent boardroom of Sterling Industries was tense. Richard sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, a smug expression on his face, surrounded by the board members he had carefully cultivated or intimidated. Their story, once a tale of despair and betrayal, became a testament to hope, resilience, and the extraordinary power of ordinary kindness. Sensitive information. Alex felt a jolt of anticipation. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more tales of unexpected heroes, dramatic twists, and justice served, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. What was your favorite moment in Alex and Alara's journey? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're here, check out our other videos for more captivating stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. There's always more to explore. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. A murmur swept through the room. Richard's face paled further. He claims he has recordings, Marcus said, his voice grave. Recordings of Richard discussing the tonics with your mother, and also of Richard giving him instructions to spread rumors about your instability and to keep you isolated.